Yay, we are live. We are live. They get what they want. They never want it again. They get what they want. Never want it again. Go on, take everything. Take everything. I want you to. Go on, take everything. Take everything. I want you to. Oh, we have people here. Gabrielle and Nina. Sup, Nina? What's up, Nina? I just got off a reading. Typically, I would have started this 30 minutes ago. But I just had a reading, and it went very well. It went very well. So, you should all think about getting readings, too, at some point. Oops. Go on, take everything. Take everything. I want you to. Go on, take everything. That's from Hole. Remember Courtney Love's band? I loved Hole. But she had a Mars and Gemini, and I'm going to be filming a video about Mars and Gemini today since he goes into Gemini on the 20th, and we've been talking a bit about that. Hi, Jezebel. How are you? How are you, sweetheart? Are you asking for the head of John the Baptist? You know? I am thinking about getting one, but your Wix site... No, 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 sweetheart. Sweetheart, no. Look at the new website URL. I put it in the description. I'm sorry, I forgot to update the description. My new website is saturngirl.org, and that works. saturngirl.org. That's saturngirl.org. Saturngirl.org. One of my favorite things to do, you know. Gosh, my hair's all... Go on, take everything. Take everything. I want you to. Nina said, I love Hole, literally and figuratively. Yeah, me too. I sure love holes, you know. I'm pretty good at filling them. Gosh, I probably shouldn't say that on here. My eyes are all watering. My eyes are all watering. Anyway, so someone had a question about the lots or the parts, the Arabic parts or lots. So I could talk about that a little bit. Or I could talk about current events. Or people could start putting their birth information in the chat. And remember, I do prioritize. Hi, Bexy. Hi, Bexy. Spicy Pisces says, Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you. It makes me think of the old Winnie the Pooh from the 60s. Happy Wednesday, because it was windy. Happy Wednesday. And then Heffalumps and Woozles. Heffalumps and Woozles. Steal honey. Beware. Beware. Oh, my eyes watering. Jesus. Oh dear. Hello, my love. Hello. Hello. S. Schultz says talk about current events. I mean, there's a lot going on. Jeez Louise. This is one of those times when so much happens in a... Topeka says, I am awake the whole night. Jesus, Topeka. Wow, you poor baby. The whole night. The whole night. Well, please, if you want a reading, start queuing up. Otherwise, and until you do, I'm going to keep talking about current events. Because I predicted the Trump shooting on Saturday. I didn't say it was going to be a shooting because I didn't know. But I saw that it was going to be a surprise attack. So I did post about that. Quite interesting. But the other big thing, see, right now I'm focused on American politics as far as current events. But there's been awful stuff still happening in Gaza. There was a big massacre that happened the other day. Terrible stuff. But I've been really focused on European elections. You know, the UK elections were sort of disappointing. Although Jeremy Corbyn got in, didn't he? Right? as an independent. But the Reform Party, which is basically a Nazi fascist party, they got, what, 13 seats or something like that? But Labor, got the most. But Labor isn't that great of a party anymore. They're to the right of Joe Biden on economics. They're super transphobic. And, they've sort of lost their progressive edge, But then France, there was a coalition, a leftist coalition between Mélenchon, and Macron. And they were able to defeat the far right because they were coordinating. And hopefully we learn some lessons from that, you see. So, but here, of course, Biden is still sort of degenerating. He had an interview with Lester Holt the other night, and it was so painful to watch. And then when he delivered that speech from the Oval Office about the shooting, he's like, "We settle our differences at the battle box." He kept saying battle box. Motherfucker. There's been so much good that he's done, except for the Gaza thing, But he has done a lot of good. He's been the most pro-labor president. And he's done the most for climate change. However, he's not able to form a coherent sentence anymore. He gave some policy recommendations that he committed to for his first 100 days. And they were all very good. Extending the child tax credit again, which cut child poverty in half. That's really important. And then he pointed out a bunch of other things too, which we won't get into, but it was a pretty good agenda. But no one's going to be paying attention to that because Trump got the coolest fucking pictures in the world. I don't like him whatsoever, but you have to admit that shit looks cool as fuck. Like, he's holding his fist up in the air with blood on his face. He just dodged a bullet, Like every fucking man in America suddenly wants to go down on him, Like Jesus. Anyway, we'll start looking at charts, but there's just so much going on. And we have a lot of, transits happening. I'll talk some other time about how they reflect in the United States birth chart. God, I don't want my mascara and my eyeliner to get ruined, but, Anyway. Let's start looking at charts, yeah? So who's put their stuff in here? My lovely Bexy. I'm so glad you're here. I know you're, don't feel obligated to stay if you have to get shit done. God damn it, I need a tissue. Go on, take everything, I want you to. Go on, take everything, I dare you to. Schultz says that pic will be in the history books. Like, no shit, homie, right? Like, I wish I had a picture of me like that. Shit's hard as fuck, That would be my perfect advertising thing. Now, you can tell he has content brain because the first thing he thought of was making that photo op, And to me, that's sort of a narcissistic thing. But I have to be honest, that would be my first thought too. Oh my God, this is such a great photo op. But, I have some narcissistic tendencies myself, I have to admit. I'm very vain, Yes, Hole, one of my favorite bands. But Courtney Love was very abusive, apparently. Not just to Kurt, but to other people. Her own daughter. Said some pretty bad things about her. And she socked Kathleen Hanna in the face, apparently, for no reason. Sucker punched her. Because, I guess, Kathleen was the lead singer of Bikini Kill, right? Another women's punk band. All because Kathleen said Courtney was a fake feminist, which she was. She is a fake feminist, rather. So, anyway. Bexy says she's multitasking. I wish you were multitasking with me, sweetheart. I wish you were multitasking with me. Oh, you are so gorgeous, Bexy. You are so gorgeous. You are so gorgeous. Oh, there's dust everywhere. So let's go to charts. Let's go to charts. I just wanted to know how you got into spirituality. Well, I don't consider myself a spiritual person anymore, but I got into spirituality when I was 3 years old. And I remember this specific instance. And this is a good thing to talk about before we go into charts, because this is what astrology is all about. It's a tool for self-development. It's a tool for studying consciousness, studying our own consciousness. And when I was 3 years old, my progressed Mercury, for those of you who know what progressions are, went direct, right? Around the time I was 3. And that's when I had a big, profound experience. My parents had this orange shag carpet, you know, nasty. Remember that stuff in the 80s? The dingy orange shag carpet from, I mean, it was often back at the 70s, you know. Bexy says, right back at you. Yes. I am sexy, aren't I? I'm sexy, Bexy. Bexy sexy too. Bexy's wonderful. Anyway. I'm gushing over my girlfriend, you know. So. But anyway, I was sitting on this orange shag carpet. And when I was little, I remember I used to get clumps of it in my hand, you know, and pretend like it was like I was looking down on fields of grain from a plane. Yeah. I used to imagine it. And I could still smell the mildew wafting out of it. It was kind of gross. But it was such a vivid memory. Because at that moment, bam! It was like a trumpet in my ear or a brick to the face. I was suddenly in a new space, but it was the space I previously occupied. But everything was alive. Everything was new. All sense of me just disappeared. I was me and I wasn't me. Everything was me. And nothing was me. It was the most profound thing I've ever experienced. It felt like home. And I've never felt like that since. And I've been chasing that experience ever since. I've had similar experiences, but not with the same gravity. Right? And as a child, as a very Catholic child, the only way I could explain it to myself was God, right? But that was my only framework. You see? The only way I could describe the experience itself was, I'm here. It was the most amazing thing. Everything was alive. Everything was breathing. Everything was breathing as part of me. You see? And it was such an amazing experience. I was so excited. I ran to my mother, who was in the kitchen doing whatever. And I said, Mom, I'm here. And she looks at me and says, oh, that's great, Frankie. You're here. Cool. You know, I had no other way to explain it to her. And I had no way of expressing how profound, how rare and wonderful this experience was. And I've never forgotten it. In fact, this experience is what propelled me onto this whole thing, because after that, I became obsessed with consciousness. And I needed to know how consciousness arose, where it came from, how it was. And as a very religious little kid, you know, it took on a decidedly spiritual bent. But when I was 12 years old, I decided to leave the Catholic Church. And from the Gospels, because of two specific lines, right? Christ said, 2 commandments I give to you. Love God with all your mind, all your soul, all your strength. And the second is love your neighbor as you love yourself. I didn't see that actually happening in Christianity. So I got motivated to get into the occult. I had an uncle who had lived in Thailand and had studied Buddhism, and he got me into into learning about Buddhism, but he also got me into an esoteric teacher named G.I. Gurdjieff, George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. So if for those who are familiar with Gurdjieff, if you're not, you should familiarize yourself. I'll do a video about Gurdjieff at some point. But from Gurdjieff, you know, I got into Crowley, I got into, or Crowley, I suppose. I don't want any OTO bitches to come after me, you know. I almost joined the OTO. You know, eventually I became a Freemason because that's what I gravitated towards. But I was looking at the OTO. I joined Builders of the Adytum back when I was 21, you know, which was a tarot group that was started by Paul Foster Case, who was also a, you know, part of the Golden Dawn, right, which was the order that Aleister Crowley was a part of. So I did so much. I did so much in different spiritual groups. But I discovered Ramana Maharshi and Sri Maharaj Nisargadatta in my early 20s too. And those are the two gurus that have made the biggest impression on me, because they preach the only thing that I preach, which is vichara, right? Vichara. My Crowley deck is a #1 favorite deck. I pretty much use it. Yeah, it was my favorite deck for many years. But you see what happened recently. In 2021, before I came out, I had all my beliefs shattered. And they were shattered by Buddhist logic. I got very into Nagarjuna, you see, and the Mula Madhyamaka, the middle way. The fundamental wisdom of the middle way. And the logic in there is so gorgeous. One of my favorite lines is, "It exists" is an eternalist view. "It doesn't exist" is an annihilationist idea. Therefore, the wise person finds recourse neither in existence nor non-existence. It's the middle way, right? And I lost all belief in God, and I lost all belief in general after studying Nagarjuna. The reason being because the logic of interdependence, you see. The logic of interdependence. In an interdependent and relativistic universe, everything is changing. Nothing is permanent, and everything is dependent on everything else. You see? So anyway, I don't consider myself a spiritual person anymore. I consider myself an empiricist, someone who learns through experience and logic, you see. But that doesn't mean I'm not still obsessed with consciousness. And I'm still in pursuit. What I'm obsessed with and what I want to know is just what is. You know, if there is God, if there is all this other, you know, mumbo jumbo that we talk about, that's great. That's wonderful. I'll do that. But my first concern is understanding whence consciousness arises. And that's been my obsession since I was 3. And you don't need God or anything else for that, you see. You don't. So anyway, we'll start doing readings now, but Deepika had asked me what got me into spirituality, and it's that. And you don't need to be hemmed in by the term spirituality. It's the search, right? It's the search for truth, whatever that may be. And we have to realize everything is relative and nothing is absolute. And spirituality ultimately rests on the idea of absolutes. And I lost the ability to put my trust in absolutes. Yes. It was very painful for me to lose God. It was like losing part of myself. I cried for weeks. And my girlfriend at the time said, "Why are you so upset?" And I'm like, because I lost God. I lost my soul, you know. But then I found all sorts of new wonders, you see. I found all these new wonders. If you haven't read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, read Siddhartha. Read Siddhartha. And check out I Am That by Maharaj Nisargadatta. Yes? And check out Ramana Maharshi. Please. Please, please, please. I'm also very much into science and history. I'm an empiricist. I'm Saturn girl. I don't believe in things anymore. What's funny is it was 28 years, a Saturn cycle, between when I started with the occult at age 12 and when I sort of stopped with it at age 40, you see. So anyway, Saturn cycle. And I'm Saturn girl, you know. So we'll start on people's charts now. Who was first? Who was first? Oh, Dare, did you want any more? Oh, Dare. Yes, you asked about lots. So while I'm bringing up the next chart. So who was first? Nina, I think I still have your chart. Spicy Pisces. Spicy Pisces. Oh, we have Topeka. Spicy Pisces was first. But so the Arabic lots, the lots are parts, like the lot of fortune, the lot of spirit, the lot of eros. There's a lot for every planet, right? The lot of fortune has to do, it's a simple equation. It's like you take the distance from the moon to the sun and subtract. I forget the formula, but the part of fortune has to do with the moon, which is the body. So it's about a mathematical formula between the sun, moon, and ascendant. The lot of spirit is the sun. And the equation goes the other way, you see? And then there's like the lot of eros, which is the same sort of equation, but with Venus. There's a lot of victory, which is the same thing, but with, I think, Jupiter. There's the lot of nemesis, which is an equation with the distance Saturn. So what you're doing is you're adding and subtracting these distances between one planet and another and the ascendant, right? The ascendant degree, in order to derive these lots. Now, the lot of fortune was said to be one of the 5 most important points in your chart, right? In ancient astrology, the 5 most important points in your chart are the sun, the moon, the planet that rules your ascendant, the ascendant ruler, right? And then we have the lot of fortune, and then the syzygy, or the prenatal lunation. That was the full moon or new moon that immediately preceded your birth, okay? And we're not going to talk about all those right now. But the lots, the Arabic lots, right? We have the term lots, like casting lots, right? They have to do with fortune, with luck, with, fate. They have to do with fate, right? And those are what we use in zodiacal releasing, you see? Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much, Nina. I really appreciate you. Did you want us to look at your chart first? Spicy Pisces, I was Stephen Moongazer. Cool. Stephen Moongazer. Awesome. Awesome. Nice to meet you, Stephen. I mean, I knew you before as Spicy Pisces. Spices. Pisces, more like crises. Nina, did you want a brief little reading, my dear? I'm going to start putting in spices. Or maybe I'll just call you Stephen Moongazer. Or I'll say Spicy Pisces, so I recognize for later. Because you'll probably be back. You'll probably be back, sweetheart. Someday you will ache like I ache. Do. Someday you will ache like I ache. I am doll parts, bad skin, doll heart. It stands for night, for the rest of my life. Yeah, they really want you. They really want you. They really do. Yeah, they really want you. They really want you. Well, I do too. I want to be the girl with the most cake. Cool, Nina. I will get you right after Spicy Pisces. I just don't want to, after I was already pulling up their chart, I don't want to. Or his chart. I think you're his, Steven, right? Steven? Remember Cable Guy? He had the lisp, right? He goes, Steven? He's like, oh, my lisp is gone after, Matthew Broderick punches him. And then he punches him again and he's like, you stupid son of a bitch. He's got his lisp back. Anyway, we have a Cancer rising, like one of my besties, Anne. She's such a sweetheart. Someday you will ache like I ache. Anyway, the first house ruler is the moon in the ninth house in Pisces. He, him, lols. Yeah, okay, cool. I don't fucking know. Like, I never. That's why I try and ask. It's polite to ask. You know? I know right wingers hate that shit these days, but it's just common courtesy. Like, it doesn't hurt anyone. But they freak out over it. Anyway, we don't need to talk about that. So you have your first house ruler in the ninth house. So you obviously have been interested in spirituality since you were a child. You were probably a kid like me who was asking all those obnoxious questions that priests and pastors hate to hear. And parents, the 3 Ps. Peace, pastors, parents, right? Because you were probably asking, like, well, how do you know there's a God? Or, how is this all a thing? How does this exist? How do we exist? What's the nature of the soul? What's the meaning of life, right? Questions that kids don't usually ask. But the thing about children, and I'm saying this because you also have a bunch of fifth house stuff. The thing about children, right? I mean, kids can be fucking assholes. Let's be real. For those of you who are parents like me, my daughter's the most important thing in the world or person in the world to me. She's my entire world, in fact. But, I mean, she's so good. Like, I really have to say, like, as far as children go, like, she's so good. She's so good. But still, you know what I'm saying? Kids can be assholes. But what are they doing? They're discovering things for the first time. Remember, Christ said, lest you become as little children, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. What did he mean by that? Well, to me, he was referring to being present, to being here, right? Getting out of our fucking heads, right? How much do we stress about shit that hasn't happened yet? Or how much do we dwell on memories we don't even remember correctly? And I'm not saying we don't process memories and process old hurts. I'm saying we need to keep track of the present. And that's what children do. They're discovering things for the first time. They're not yet hampered as we are by all these identifications we acquire in life, you see? All these identifications we acquire in life. Oh, Dare says, yes, my son will be 16 in November. Oh yeah, mine just turned 11 and she's already a little teenager, I mean, she's a little tweenager. Tweenie. She's so amazing, though. She really is. Now, the other interesting thing, you have all this stuff in the 6th house. And then you have this wonderful, I guess we'll call it a stellium, in the 5th house. So you see the emphasis here is really on the 5th and 6th house. And the 5th house is what? It's sex and children. It's pleasure and fun, right? It's where Venus rejoices, and you have Venus in the 5th house. So you're undoubtedly probably a sexual person. You might be a musician. You might be a performer of some type. But oftentimes with Saturn in the 5th house, either you don't want children, or it's difficult having children, or you have difficulty with children. I've also seen this with people who are elementary school teachers or who work with children. That's often a time. Bexy says, maybe heaven is on earth by way of a mindset consciousness. Remember Belinda Carlisle from the 80s? You might not remember her, Bexy, but, ooh, baby, do you know what it's worth? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth, right? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to shape the world in the image of love and compassion, right? If we are so able. That's Dharma. And all of our Dharma is indicated for us by our rising sign. So for you, Cancer, which is all about learning how to build strong sense of confidence within to be vulnerable and loving without, right? It takes strength on the inside to be vulnerable, right? It takes strength to be vulnerable and to allow yourself to be sensitive to others. Ooh, heaven is a place on earth, right? Now you have Venus conjunct Pluto, and that can be quite difficult, for relationships, because you might get obsessive. I'm assuming like you might be into women, but it doesn't matter who you into. You'll get obsessive about partners, and you'll probably have a hard time being social. Like, what I do when I meet someone, I'm like, hey, wow, you're really pretty. Do you want to chat a little bit? And then oftentimes something happens or works out. Sometimes it doesn't, but I'm not too worried about it, right? Now, when Venus is in Scorpio and conjunct Pluto, you do worry about it. And it's very difficult for you to probably walk up to women or men or whoever and be like, hi, because I almost said that's the normal way of meeting people, but what's normal, right? Meanwhile, you're in the bushes stalking people, maybe with binoculars, right? Anyway, and you might be a bit passive aggressive with that Mars in Libra, with that Mars in Libra. Now, I wonder if you had difficulty with your father because Venus rules your fourth house of dad and she's in the fifth house, but she's not happy in Scorpio, you see? So I would wonder if dad cheated on mom. Oftentimes we see that. Dad cheated on mom or whatever. It's all in your mind, she said, the darkness and the light. Thanks a lot, third eye blind. I mean, yeah. And it's not all in our minds, is it? Our experiences, right? And we filter experience through all of our identifications and our five senses, you see? And what we take ourselves to be, that's identification. The things that we take to be defining us, you see? So anyway, when I see the fourth house ruler in the fifth house, I often think, yo, dad cheated on mom, or dad was a gambler, or dad was just like into his pleasure. Maybe dad was a party animal, a bit selfish, perhaps. A bit selfish. And I wonder if mom was religious, I wonder if mom was religious. And I'm not sure if you had a good experience with mom, but the moon in Pisces, you see, often is quite loving. But on the other hand, it can also be resentful and indolent, right? And what do I mean by that? It's like, oh, woe is me. Oh my gosh. And then it's hard to get going or do things for Pisces moon because they're sitting there whining, and they change their minds all the time. But it's very sensitive. It's very loving. It connects with people, right? People often have the sense that Pisces moon understands them and understands their pain. There's a natural sort of empathy, but it's not something you're conscious of. In fact, you would need to have alone time every day in order to extract yourself, in order to extract or disentangle your moods and your emotions from other people. Because, oh, mom was always working. Yeah. Okay, well, that makes sense. Saturn is trine your moon. Saturn, that diligent and disciplined planet. So that makes perfect sense. And I bet you also have a good work ethic on the one hand. But on the other hand, I bet you also have difficulty with your own emotions. Maybe you're uncomfortable with your own emotions, right? I bet you're very loyal, though. I bet you're loyal with Saturn trine your moon, right? But it can also be a little bit of depressing. You need your after work nap. Yes, you see, that's very important. Very important. Because it also takes you away from all the influences, right? You see, Pisces, it's very easy to influence them. It's very easy to influence Pisces. J management, MGMT. That's management, right? Or is it the band MGMT, right? Shock me like electric eel, baby girl. Do, 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 do. I love that song. Shock me like an electric eel, baby girl. Right? You have a very practical mind, too. Very practical type mind with Mercury and Capricorn. You're probably very intelligent, but you might be a bit rigid in your thinking. Yes, tech support for education company. Well, there you go. Education. Your 10th house ruler is Mars in the 4th house. So you might like to work in private a bit more, You might like to work in private a bit more. Location, Kurunagala. Okay. Where's Kurunagala? I'm not sure. And I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. I love how you're so musical. Yeah, it's my 5th house stuff. I'm a musician too. I mean, I play guitar, I play bass, I sing. I was in choir for years. I suck at piano, but I tried, you know. I was a music major in college for a bit, and then I switched to communications because I'm a much better talker, you know, in general. Anyway, so you have all this shit in the sixth house too, you know, which can lend itself to health problems. We have to move on in a second though, but it can lend itself to health problems, you know. Remote work. Yeah, that's very sort of fourth house. Working in the home. 10th house ruler in the fourth house of the home. Working from home. Boom. Very simple equation there. Very literal. Now, Sun conjunct Jupiter, sometimes it makes us a bit, you know, I don't want to say overweight, but, you know, bigger people sometimes. Not always. It can also make you very inclusive. It's a very happy Jupiter, right? And Sagittarius is very sort of intellectual too. You know, so you're probably very intelligent, philosophical, all those sorts of things. You know, but you also have to face a lot of uphill battles or fights that are bigger than you. You know, you still have to struggle with things. You might have good luck with health though too. You might have good luck with health too. I don't know. But anyway, in timing, in terms of timing, Saturn's going through your ninth house. So either you're having a difficult time with school or education, right? What instrument would be best for me? What instrument would be best for me? Let's see. Let's see. I don't see any Gemini. I don't see any Gemini. Shock me like an electric eel, baby girl. Moon trine Venus. Moon trine Venus is artistic too, creative and potentially musical. Well, do you have time to take up? Yeah, you're obese. I'm so sorry, darling. That's Jupiter conjunct the sun. Robert Hand had that too, and he was also obese. So, and I'm not, you know, I don't ever body shame. I've dated people of all shapes and sizes. All shapes and sizes. Anyway, money. How about money? Money might be a little difficult, you know? But money does come from the daily grind, from work, you know? Second house ruler in the sixth house. Easy there. What instrument would you play? Sagittarius, Jupiter, Venus from Scorpio. I would play bass. I would play bass or drums if I were you. I don't know if you like that sort of thing, but I would probably play bass. And I say that because, you know, Jupiter conjunct the sun and Venus in Scorpio, sort of a darker Venus. And then Jupiter, I think of boom, 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 boom. You know, bop, 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 bop. You know, anyway. So that's my, anyway. Guitar and violin and keyboard weren't a good fit. I mean, I think bass is cool. I love it. See, the thing is, though, you have to get obsessive. And it's not the talent. When people say you're gifted, it's not the talent. It's the desire to do it. I was obsessed with guitar, you know, when I was growing up. So I was obsessed with Billy Corgan, and he was a great guitarist, even though he's an asshole now. Now, Mars square Mercury, you could probably be a terrible arguer, and I bet you have anxiety issues. Yeah, bass is so much fun. It's just, it is for me, rather, you know. So anyway, now right now, you've got Jupiter going through your 12th house. So this is sort of a time of reflection and seclusion over the next year. You know, this is oftentimes when we address mental health issues. And you see your North Node is there too. So you're getting into a time in your life when, you know, probably solitude is becoming more interesting to you. Or also working on our mental health and reflection, you see? And Mars is about to go into your 12th house in a few days too, which can be agitating, you know? We don't want people to come around. We don't want to talk to people. But I was in love with Billy Corgan too, but he's such a jerk. I mean, yeah, he is a jerk. He is. He's super transphobic now, apparently. And he was just an asshole to lots of other bands who were really cool to him. Like Collective Soul, you know? he said Collective Soul copied one of his songs, and they really didn't. And he was just an asshole to them. And they said, yo, we're fans of yours. Like, don't trip. Anyway. Yes, and I do like arguments depending on the topic. Sure. Anyway, now is going to be a time when you want to be left alone with Mars going into your 12th house. And Mars will be there until... what? September? Early September? September 4th or some shit like that. So, and then Venus is going through your 2nd house now. Oh, you remember that? Yeah, it's too funny. I mean, there's lots of instances of him being an asshole. There's stories of him making Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer, play till his hands bled. I mean, that's fucking crazy. Anyway, Billy Corgan is very Plutonian. He's got like Pluto conjunct his ascendant or something. Anyway, Venus going through your 2nd house. This could be very good for a little bit of money, or some luck with your job or your business. Maybe you get a stipend, or you get a bonus, or you get more sales, or maybe you just spend a little bit of money on yourself, some clothes or whatever. Make yourself kind of feel good or look good, right? This could also be about food. The 2nd house is food. Enjoying good food, things like that. You're going to Ireland at the end of August. Yes, very cool. Very cool. And that'll be when Mars is going into your... See, I went to Ireland too in 2005. I stayed at Ballynahinch. And then I saw the cliffs of Moher. We stayed in Galway. Galway was such a fun town. I didn't get to see Newgrange, though, because I was with my stupid uncle at the time, and he didn't want to go. And then we saw Dublin, which is like any metropolitan European city. But Ireland is so wonderful. If you can go see Newgrange, it's one of the oldest megalithic sites in the world. Dates back to 3200 BCE, which is around the time of Sumer, right? And the Sumerians, where they're coming on the scene. So very, very interesting stuff. If you can go see Newgrange, please. You love good food. It's so rare. Well, you might find some good restaurants here. But then, also, you're about to have the, Saturn going through Pisces in your 9th house, right? That's good for travels and stuff like that. Or that does indicate travels sometimes. But more often, it usually suggests that our spirituality, our religion, our spiritual path is sort of dissolving all around us. And it might feel sort of depressing and meaningless, but then you sort of get faced with new ways of thinking and all that sort of stuff. I will see if I can doing it by train. Cool. Anyway, this is when we get confronted with new belief systems and things like that, and we often have to change or adjust our worldview because it doesn't fit us anymore, you see? But this is a big time for you because you've got the eclipses going between your 10th and 4th house. So again, this oftentimes is when we change jobs or change life direction. Maybe that happened to you after April. But then the one in October is in your 4th house, which could be moving, finding a new place, or moving to a new state or a new area or something like that. That does often happen. So, but we need to move on to the next person. We're going to do Oh Dare. Oh dare, oh dare, oh dare, oh dare. Don't take my man. I was singing Jolene, which doesn't make sense for Oh Dare. Jolene, Jolene, Jolene. Okay. So Oh Dare, you were on here, yes? And then we'll go to... Oh, Nina. Nina donated. I'm sorry. We need to go to Nina. And then Oh Dare. Well, O'Dare's a member. I have O'Dare's chart up really quick, so we'll do O'Dare quickly, you see? So O'Dare, we talked about Saturn conjunct your ascendant already, and Venus in the 7th house. We talked about codependency, I'm sure, and simpiness and all that sort of thing. And being interested in the bad boys and girls, perhaps. The dangerous ones, right? The dangerous ones, the James Dean types, or the Courtney Love types. I was always into the bad girls. But then I realized that, good girls are much more fun because they actually listen to you, you know, and they actually do what you want. The subby girls, I mean kink wise, the submissives. I prefer submissives. Although I'm a switch, I go both ways. I do love a good dommy mommy here and there. So now you have the eclipses going between the 11th and 5th house, which indicates to me that you're coming out of this whole cocoon phase that started in 2022, right? It may have been difficult. You may have been feeling isolated. You may have had to address, mental health and physical health issues. But now this is the time in your life when things are starting to get fun and interesting again, right? Sometimes when we have those eclipses in our 5th house, we get pregnant. I don't know if that was a thing for you since April, but sometimes we get pregnant, or we get faced with having to learn how to have fun again. Oh, my hernia. And then the one in October, the eclipse in October, has to do with big beginnings and endings with your friend groups, your supporters, your hope, dreams, and aspirations. You might find that your aspirations completely change after October, that eclipse. You also might find that you get new supporters, meet new friends, new groups of people, like-minded people. And there's also social media and popularity in the 11th house. You might do some networking. You might have people who support what you do, who support your work or creativity or something, you see? That's oftentimes with those eclipses. But bad girls. Anyone remember Violent Femmes? I love the bad girls. Oh, so much more than the good girls. Anyway. Yeah, I was obsessed with bad girls. But, I used to say, like, ruin my life, mommy, please. Until my life got ruined enough times. Until my life got ruined enough times. So anyway. Hey, looking basic. So let's move on in just a second. But I want to mention a couple other timing things. Venus going through your 9th house. Again, learning new things. This is a time to get a new book, right? To read about a spiritual path or even a self-help book, stuff like that, Even a self-help book or whatever. But it's time to sort of, learn new things, explore new philosophies, worldviews. If you're involved in any legal stuff, you might meet a female lawyer. I remember I met a female lawyer when Venus was in my 9th house. But I wasn't interested in, don't ruin my life, but you can ruin it. Oh, no, I won't ruin your life, honey. Believe me. I will ruin other things, though. I will ruin other things. Anyway, I'm having no fun just on a journey seeking the truth right now. Yeah. Yeah. It might not be fun. But Venus is in your 9th house right now. This is definitely a time to seek truth in different forms. If you've been going in one way or had one set of beliefs, it's time to learn about some others. Now, Mars is going through your 7th house. You might get in fights with your spouse or partner. Causes conflict. So just be careful of that. We don't want to say things that'll blow up in our face later, So just be careful of that. Someday you will ache like I ache. You have Mars in the 5th house like me, so you're undoubtedly sexual. If you were born female, we also see C-sections with Mars in the 5th house. So conflicts with our kids, sometimes. That can be a thing. Maybe too into pleasure. I know I am. I'm into pleasure. Bexy says, lol, sorry. Sorry for what? Anyway. Excuse me. Saturn in Pisces in your 4th house. Well, that's interesting because your North Node's in the 4th house, right? And life becomes more and more about the private life as you get older. And it's interesting that you have this time preceding your nodal return here, where Saturn is going through the 4th house, sort of clearing out your private life or making it perhaps unstable or difficult so that you can put more attention on it as you get older, because that's going to take more and more of your attention. And your success comes from the private life in the home, or maybe your family history or genealogy. You know, things like that can be indicative of inheritance, but or, you know, material stuff like real estate or land or whatever. But it can also just mean that your private life is where you find the most development and progress, you see, which could be very good for you. And we'll leave this in just a second. I wonder if you ever had a friend pass away. I think I asked you that before. A friend pass away, or a mentor or a boss pass away. Or, what's the sun rule? The 9th house. That's interesting. But again, you know, life is about developing confidence for you. And then the emphasis going on to the private life, you see. The eclipse is already talked about. There's a lunar eclipse happening in your 4th house in September. In fact, I think it'll be, let me just double check. I think it'll be, what, 25 degrees. 25 degrees Pisces. So conjunct your part of fortune. So there's something to do with your home and private life and family history, or perhaps your father, that's coming to an end. You see all this emphasis on the 4th house over the next few years? That's pretty wild. You know, Saturn going through there and causing instability with your home and private life. Perhaps your father too. Our parents have issues, right? When Saturn goes through our 4th house, often our parents struggle with their health, or, you know, struggles in general. We don't know what that might mean. Excuse me. Yeah, you did. I had a lot of people pass away. Yeah, I'm sorry, sweetheart. All that 8th house stuff, death. But people can feel that you understand their pain and trauma. So people would confide in you and feel very comfortable around you, probably, you see? Even though you may not like all the attention. Although Libra moon does love attention, don't we? I'm a Libra moon too, you know? Actually, your moon is conjunct my Pluto, like exactly. So if we ever got together, that would be sparks. Do Bexy and I have moon Pluto stuff? We have some sort of Pluto stuff. Sorry, just really quick, I'm just checking. Oh, my Pluto's conjunct her sun. Yeah, that's a lot of that obsessiveness. But it's also very, you know, it's very close. It's life-changing. It's a life-changing relationship. I'm not trying to put pressure on us, Bexy, don't worry. I'm not trying to put any pressure. Someday you will ache like I ache. Anyway, you see the emphasis on the 4th house, Pisces and Saturn here. This is really interesting stuff. And Jupiter rules your 4th house and is going through your 7th. And when Jupiter's going through your 7th, you could either meet a new partner, or you have a deepening of your current relationship if you have one. So anyway, we should move on to the next person. We have Nina. We have our dear Nina. Where's Nina's chart? Nina. Vesna, how are you, sweetheart? How are you? See if we can find Nina. Nina. Ooh la la. Yeah. Where's Nina? Let me search. Let me search. Nina always reminds me of Brother Lynch and X-Rated. I've already changed your life. You're so sweet, darling. Max Frank, hi, sweetheart. Nina, can you put your information back in here? I'm sorry, couldn't find it. I couldn't find your information, Nina. Please put your information back in. I can't find it, baby. I don't know what I did with it. I thought I had your chart up here. Go on, take everything I want you to. I'm looking for your chart, Nina, and I can't find it. God, I'm getting hungry. I see Neen? Who the fuck is Neen? Oh, here, I do have your chart, Nina. I do have it. You've probably already put your stuff. Oh, okay. 318. Yes, I do have it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are so sweet. Thank you, Nina. And thank you for donating, my darling. Thank you. If you're just joining us, please like the stream and subscribe to my channel. Please. You can donate. I prioritize donations and members. You can either join below by clicking memberships, or you can donate through super thanks or super chats. It's very, very useful and helpful. Nina has dry skin, I think we said. Nina has dry skin and frizzy hair, perhaps, with Mars in the first house. But it's oftentimes a good leader, too. Or it likes to be the leader. You know, Trump has Mars in the first house. My mother has Mars in the first house. But yeah, it can be a good leader. It can be very assertive and such. But you're also a Pisces, so you have that dual nature of sort of assertive and perhaps passive or passive-aggressive, perhaps, sometimes, you know? But you have a very difficult Mercury. Mercury stationing retrograde and is in Pisces, you see? And Mercury in Pisces, where's Virgo? Your second house. So I wonder if you've had difficult times with money. You see? Plus you have Saturn in the second house. So oftentimes it means we grew up with not a lot of resources, or our parents made us feel like we didn't have much. Like they're like, no, you can't have new clothes. Share them with your brother. We can't afford that, right? Whether or not they actually could, they made you feel like you struggled for money. Oftentimes we see people growing up poor. But then you also have Jupiter in the second house. I didn't compare you to Trump. Don't worry. I'm just citing examples. I mean, you probably wouldn't like being compared to my mother either. So her birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Mom. Cancer. She has Mars, the Sun, and Uranus all in the first house in Cancer. You know? Yes, you were born in a low-income home. Yeah, you see, that's very typical with this sort of thing. But it looks like you do have some sort of, you know, Jupiter's in the second house. First-generation college grad. See, that makes sense, especially with your moon in the ninth house also. But the moon in the ninth house, as we talked about before, is also very spiritually inclined, even as a child, right? Although with an Aries moon, you might be a bit brash and impulsive, you know, shoot from the hip. You might have to apologize frequently for stuff that you didn't mean to do, you know. But Pisces, it's like you have a dual, maybe extrovert, introvert sort of nature, like you oscillate between the two, you know. The moon is conjunct your midheaven. That's very auspicious, you know. Oftentimes I'd expect you to have a job either in education or at a college or university, right? Or you have some connection to an academic setting, or perhaps you're just like into foreign people and foreign cultures. Oh, excuse me. Hernia. And I'd expect you also to get good recognition. You may have been lucky in your career path. I don't know. Now you're probably the type of person who had difficulty finding direction early on. Like, what do I want to do? I don't know. Changing lots of careers or whatever. But Venus up there in the 10th house indicates some modicum of success, right? Or finding a good path or whatever. Oh, you work in higher ed. Yeah, there you go. You see? So, yeah. Now, in terms of timing, though, Venus is going through your first house, so enjoy this shit. This is time to get your hair done, get some new clothes, make yourself feel pretty, and you could meet a new partner. I often meet new partners when I have Venus going through my first or seventh house, and you've got her in the first house right now. So, I've worked at a community college for over 20 years as a senior science laboratory technician. See, that's very, very indicative of that ninth house stuff, and the midheaven in the ninth house too. That's why I suggested that, you see. But people would like you at work, or you might have a female boss, people who support you, so I would expect that you're liked at your job, that people like you. Although sometimes you might be dissatisfied with your life path and think you want to do something else. So anyway, we'll move on to someone else in just a second. But, enjoy the Venus thing. Venus will be there till August 4th. And then go into your second house, which could also help income a little bit. Although Venus isn't happy in Virgo, but she does go over your Jupiter. Your Jupiter's not too happy either. Be careful with debt. Don't rack up debt. Be careful with it. And if you do have to take on debt, just be very diligent about paying things off. Don't let it get out of hand. You see? Gosh, I got to go onto the IRS website after this and talk to my accountants. Fuck. I hate dealing with this shit. I have Saturn in the second house right now, going through my second house. Right? So, getting my finances in order. And then you got Mars going through your 11th house along with Jupiter. So you might find yourself getting more support over the next year. But over the next month or so, you could find yourself really upsetting people, pissing people off, or cutting people off. Having conflicts online, having conflicts with supporters, getting depressed or cynical or despondent, or just getting in fights with friends, you see? And it might be over politics, religion, or spirituality, because Mars rules your ninth house, you see. And we talked the eclipses are going back and forth between your ninth and third house. So you see, you're also having big beginnings and endings in what you believe and how you communicate it. You might be starting education or something, like a job training after October because of the third house. Or it could be short journeys, or issues with a sibling, getting more involved in your community. But often I see it having to do with the dissemination of information. So you may have found new things that you believe, and now it's about communicating them after October. But we got to move on to someone else. Let's go to... Why did Spicy Pisces retract all their messages? I hope you're not upset, sweetheart. Oh, please, go to my website, saturngirl.org also. You can book through there and also subscribe. I forgot to do my newsletter this week, so I have to do my newsletter, But please subscribe on my website, and you can also book readings through there. I need to update my calendar, though, of course. So anyway, who was next? I guess Deepika. What are my thoughts on Chiron? So I am mostly an ancient astrologer. I'm more friends than enemies at work. So I am an ancient astrologer primarily, but I still use Chiron. Chiron's a big thing. He's a thing that does stuff. And remember who Chiron is. Deepika, I'll get to you in just a second. But Chiron was the only centaur who wasn't an asshole. Remember the centaurs in Greek mythology? Like especially the story of Heracles, the Greek myth of Heracles? The centaurs were drunkards. They were always drunk, and they were very rapey, right? They were very rapey, you know, especially a centaur named Nessus, right? A centaur named Nessus. But Chiron was the good centaur, right? And Hercules, or Heracles rather, was firing off poison arrows at the bad centaurs, right? And remember, the poison arrows were poisoned with the blood of the Hydra, right? So he's firing these arrows that are taking out all these bad centaurs. And then Chiron, the one good centaur who's like a physician and brilliant and all these things, and a philosopher, he starts philosophizing, and he picks up the arrow and he's like, wow, how can such a little thing cause so much damage, right? And then he drops it and finds out because it hits him in the hoof, right? His little hoof. And Chiron was immortal, so he couldn't die. He has this Hydra blood, and he's hovering in agony, in absolute pain between life and death, right? And then Prometheus, in his infinite mercy. Prometheus is already getting his liver eaten out, isn't he, right? For those of you who remember the story of Prometheus, he's chained to the rock after giving the humans fire, right? Zeus punishes him. So Prometheus, in his infinite compassion, takes on the pain and suffering and the immortality of Chiron, right? And allows Chiron to die. So Chiron has to do with pain. It's the wounded healer. It's the wounded physician. When I do use Chiron in a natal chart reading, I look at Chiron as sort of like a mini Saturn. I'll look at Saturn as sort of the prevailing psychological issues and trials and tribulations, materially and psychologically, that you have to face in life, right? For me, it's ninth house Saturn. So I struggle with God a lot. God and I have a constant battle that we're in, I oscillate between atheism and, and spirituality, I suppose. Ninth house Saturn. But then Chiron is sort of the field where they take place, right? For me, Chiron is in the home, right? In the fourth house. So I had a lot of pain in childhood around my upbringing, my home, and my father, right? And my father took his own life when I was younger. So, when I was 19 or 20. So, that's where the pain is. And my dad was also where I learned a lot of stuff about religion and philosophy early on, because he was very brilliant. We used to talk about Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine and Buddhism and all kinds of other philosophies and stuff when I was growing up. So you could see that ninth house, fourth house relationship. So anyway, who was I entering in here? So yeah, Chiron represents a place in our lives where we find pain. And I have Chiron conjunct the sun. So, pain is sort of part of my life and my presentation. Even though I'm very lucky, like I've had a pretty good life in general. But, I tend to experience things as painful, right? So anyway, oh yeah, we're going to Deepika. Deepika. Wait, did I already have Deepika? Did I already have Deepika's chart? I already had Deepika's chart. December the 17th, 96. Yeah, you're still quite young too, sweetheart. You're in education currently too. You mean you're in school, or you teach, or you work at a university, or what? Because you have all this ninth house stuff. And that could indicate also working in higher education at a college. I also worked higher education for a long time, and my moon is in the ninth house, and it's the ruler of my sixth house, so that makes perfect sense, working in higher education, at least for a while, before becoming an astrologer, starting my business. You're also a Pisces moon. You're doing your MBA. Well, so there's the college part. Yes, that is higher education and degrees. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Not comfy sending my birth info. Can I DM you my chart on Facebook? Sure, James, that's fine. That's fine. And I understand some people aren't comfortable. I understand. You know. I understand. See, people think about like bad magicians and stuff will use your chart for bad astrological magic. I'm not into all that sort of stuff. I mean, I do astrological magic, but yeah. Yeah, my chart's already public. See, Mars opposite the moon, oftentimes that's a mom with a bad temper, right? But it can also be your own bad temper or being very reactive, you see. So James, I get to people who donate first, or members first, and then donations. So Max Frank, let me know if you want me to look at your chart too, because you are a member. You are a member. You are a member. So Deepika was immediately interested in career, I think. Like I told you about going to France. Xtina, did you already put your stuff in the chat? And thank you so much. Thank you so much for supporting me, Xtina. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Did you put your stuff in the chat? Did you put your stuff in the chat? Please do, Xtina. Please do. Please do. Anyway, so Moon in Pisces, opposite Mars. Opposite Mars. Well, but you wanted to hear about career. So Saturn rules your 10th house. So you had Saturn going through your 10th house in 2021 and 2022, all the way until March of 2023. And when Saturn was going through your 10th house back then, it could feel like you were stifled, like you weren't getting recognition, like maybe you didn't get the job you wanted, or you didn't get accepted to the program you wanted, right? It might have felt like a letdown. And then as you got into 2023, you maybe saw some light at the end of the tunnel, right? And now Saturn is going through your 11th house. So you got to be careful that you don't get depressed or you don't start to lose hope. Because when Saturn goes through the 11th house, oftentimes we do start to lose hope. And then things you may have been involved in, something takes you away from them. Something feels like it alienates you or cuts you off from your hopes or aspirations or dreams. Or, the things that you're interested in, friends or groups of like-minded people that you might associate with, right? Friends, organizations, professional organizations, perhaps. I mean, I don't know what you're doing, but it just feels like we're not so popular. And we get alienated from the things that interest us in some way. Excuse me. But then you're going to have your Saturn return, which is a big deal. And that happens starting next year. Midway through next year, I think it's June of 2025. So I have to leave for work by 4:30. If you can't jump before then, I can. So I'll start you right after Deepika. I'll get you in just a few minutes. Give me 2 more minutes, sweetheart, okay? Give me 2 more minutes. So Saturn does rule your career stuff, right? In general. So on that note too, because Saturn rules your career, you could see new opportunities start to arise around this time. Yes? Now Venus just went through your 3rd house. So I bet you had a good, something good that happened in terms of your education, or maybe a presentation or a project or a paper, right? Did you have a big paper that you did a good job on? That could have been a thing. Or connecting with classmates or friends, stuff like that, right? Or reconnecting with a sister or another sibling or an aunt or an uncle or whatever, cousins. Okay. The eclipses. See, Saturn, when for you I'll be a little late. I'll get right to you. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But when you have your Saturn return, it's going to feel a bit like an exile, right? You might leave your home or your home country, you know. You might feel like a stranger in a new land. That's a bit alienating. Like for me, I actually moved I was exiled from my home during my divorce, and I moved in with friends, in a different part of town, like out in the country. So anyway, that could be a thing you see. But I don't see a lot of career stuff being highlighted right now. Jupiter is going through your second house, which is good for income, for business, and for your personal possessions and your finances, your money. So this is good. But Mars going through your second house here for the next couple months is going to be difficult with money. You might spend too much money, or it might cost a lot. So is there more chance to go to France? I mean, I gotta move on. I mean, when we did the tarot stuff, yeah, I would say there's a higher likelihood of going to France. But still, Jupiter going through your second house is good for a new job. So over the next year, you could find yourself in a new job or find new sources of income. But I have to go to Xtina. Xtina. I'm going to you right now, sweetheart. May 11th, Taurus. 1984. So you're almost exactly a year younger than me. You're almost exactly a year younger than me. Thank you for doing Daytime City, 6:38 a.m. See, that helps my neurodivergent brain. Darby. You're welcome, Topeka. You're welcome. Thank you, James. I appreciate you, my love. So we have a Gemini rising here. We have a Gemini rising, and Jupiter's now in your first house, conjunct your ascendant. You see, this is very auspicious. And Jupiter's about to go over your north node. Again, very auspicious timing. So you're going to see yourself get a lot more confidence over the next year. You'll find yourself coming out of your shell, being more social, gregarious, more inclusive and welcoming. You might be approached for your wisdom. People might, be interested in what you have to say and what you have to teach and express. And this is also good for career because Jupiter rules your 10th house. Hi, Kat. Do you want to come up here? My cat. You have a Libra moon like I do. And a 5th house moon. And a 5th house part of fortune. So I wonder if you're involved with elementary schools at all. Elementary schools. Or maybe you're involved in payroll or finance or something like that. Or something like that. I love that. I'm always so shy. Yeah, you're shy, but you like to have fun, don't you? Mars rules your 11th house and is in your 6th. So, it doesn't surprise me that you're shy. It doesn't. But I imagine you have a good work ethic. But you have to work hard for everything, don't you, with Mars conjunct Saturn? It's a very wide orb. Yes, Castor's back. Hi, Cassie. And Cassie's back, too. Cassie's back. All right. Everybody. Yeah. Rock your Cassie. Yeah. See, when I pet him, he drools on me. He drools all over me. Anyway, it is rough having Venus and the Sun in the 12th house. I wonder if you had your own substance issues, or maybe you're neurodivergent, or maybe you have depression or something like that. Venus rules the 12th house though, so maybe you had children with neurodivergence. Did you ever have an autistic child or an ADHD child? Did you ever have an autistic or ADHD child? Actually, you're a food service worker, but my son is a... See, I just said that. I just said it before you typed that. I just said it. Fuck. You see, I'm good. But I try to be tactful. So yeah, you've been learning about special education. Well, you get some sort of success from children in education. And that might have to do with your child's success, with your child's success. See? I'm so good. I'm so good. But the big life motif in your chart, right? You have your North Node in the first house, and you have Chiron conjunct your ascendant. So you might have codependency issues. And you're a Libra moon like me. So you may have gotten involved in relationships that you were too scared to leave because you got too attached to the person, you know? And that's no good for you, right? Jupiter rules your seventh house of marriages and relationships and is in your eighth. And Jupiter is not happy in Capricorn. He's what's called in fall. So you probably had some bad relationships. You probably went for, you know, bad boys and girls. Maybe narcissists, maybe people who used you for money. Or you know, people who are shady or unsavory in some way, the people who you don't want to introduce to your parents, that sort of thing. But the kind of partners you need are the ones who would be able to go to hell and back with you. You see? Go to hell and back with you. People who you could share your fears, your thoughts, your trauma with. You see? Gabrielle says, I will be back later after this call, hoping for a new job career start. Okay, my love. Okay, I'll see you back in just a little bit. I'll see you back in... Thank you, Gabrielle. She says, Saturn girl, you're amazing. Thank you. So anyway, this life for you is about learning confidence and learning independence, because you'll find that relationships won't be satisfying until you're willing to walk away. Because if we're not willing to walk away, if we're too scared, then we let people treat us like shit. God, he freaks out over every little movement I make. Every move you make, every step you take, I'll be watching you. I forgot the lyrics, but, you know. Every time you something. Oh, can't you see you belong to me? Very, very creepy song. So anyway, you were just talking about my current partner is amazing and accepting and very responsible. Just what I need. Yeah, very good. Yeah, but you'd be able to want to share your hurts and stuff with that person, right? Like you need someone who you can be emotionally intimate with, because you don't want to just carry around your stuff like luggage. So I wonder if that's something that you've experienced, that you like to be with someone you can share your hurts, your fears, and your traumas with. You see? And then I'll get to James Logan. So James Logan, you don't want your stuff visible, correct? You don't want your stuff visible. Now, Jupiter going through your first house is really good. I mean, this is a really good year for you. However, Mars is about to go through your first house for the next couple months, and that can feel very good. It'll definitely feel better than having Mars in Taurus for you, right? Which would have been very agitating before. And oftentimes when Mars is in the 12th house, we get faced with self-destructive behaviors and tendencies that we need to face. But then Mars going into the first house, we can have a lot of energy and vitality. You know, we feel on top of the world. We feel very assertive. In fact, we can get sort of aggressive and maybe even bullyish during that time. So don't be a bully, right? Don't be a bully. Very important. Don't be a bully. While Mars is going through Gemini, right? And Venus is going through your third house. So you may have a sister that you reconcile with or visit or speak with or whatever. You know, Venus is often sisters and going through the third house. Or you could get luck with a writing or speaking project. Or take a little staycation, you know, doing things around town. Yes? This is more of a diplomatic phase, you know. Take it easy with your errands, with your commutes, that sort of thing. Roll the windows down and blast your music, you know, like Don Henley, right? Sunglasses on. I can't remember the Boys of Summer lyrics, but you know, you must remember that song. You were born around my time. Don Henley. The Don Henley. Saturn is opposite Venus. That's crazy. My sister just texted me this morning. We haven't talked in a while. Yeah, you see, I mean, sometimes this shit's really literal, isn't it? Like, that's why I like ancient astrology, is it's not all just the nebulous psychological crap. Like, we do get some practical, real material information too. Although the psychological stuff is quite important, you know. But you have Saturn opposite Venus and Mars opposite your sun. See, Saturn opposite Venus is very awkward socially. It's very socially awkward. You might find it hard to meet. There's the shyness you just talked about. And you may have found it hard to meet people. Not just partners, but also friends, probably. Mercury rules. See, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you're a food service worker with all the stuff in the 6th house. You know? I bet you have a good work ethic. Although, I wonder about health problems. And you may get caught up in monotony. You know, like everything feels like endless obligations. You need to learn how to have fun. You know, you need to learn how to have fun. Yes, I am what? What are you? Socially awkward. I think that's what you were saying. You know, socially awkward. But Mars opposite the sun. I have Mars conjunct the sun. This does give us a temper. It gives us a little bit of aggression. I mean, this is good for you. It's good to use this. You should use this. Although it is a difficult placement, you can use this to your advantage, you know. Surgery next week. I mean, Mars rules surgery too, right? And Mars going through your 1st house. Pretty typical surgery kind of thing. That's a very good thing to bring up, yeah. Surgery. Anyway, we should move on to someone else, but I hope that was useful for you. Now we have James Logan. James Logan. James. Oh, James. Can I call you Jimmy? Which one are you? Are you William Jones? Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, so I'm looking at your chart. I won't put it up on the screen because you don't want your details or anything. Xtina says, I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you, and thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Jimmy James. Jimmy James. Should I call you Logan, Weapon X? No, Wolverine. Schnick, schnick, schnickety, snoop, snoop. That was from Mallrats. For anyone who remembers Mallrats, I love Mallrats. I grew up on television, just so you know. So we have a Leo rising here. We have a Leo rising, which means Venus is going through your 1st house, right? So I hope that I hope you're experiencing some confidence and some appreciation of your own looks and perhaps your own handsomeness or whatever. And this is a great time to meet new partners. Unless you're already betrothed or with someone else. It could be a lovely time to meet new people. You see? It's where we feel sparkly and sexy, isn't it? It's where we feel sparkly and sexy. Gosh, Jupiter conjunct your midheaven in the 9th house also. So I wonder if you ever worked in higher education. Although Venus rules your 10th house. See, you have your moon exalted in the 10th house. FDR had that, I'm pretty sure. Was it FDR? I'm pretty sure it was. And very popular guy, very prominent guy. I love Mallrats. I love Mallrats too. That kid is back on the escalator again. Oh, the cat's back. The cat's back. Oh, God. Would you like a chocolate-covered pretzel? Anyway, so many good lines in that movie, right? Remember when he says, like, if you want to wax intellectual, or no, what do you say? Like, let's go to the food court and get a cookie. He's like, the cookie stand isn't part of the food court. Like, what do you mean? It's an eatery. Eatery's part of the food court. He's like, no, the cookie stand is outside of the food court. And when something's outside of the food court, it's a designated place for mid-mall snacking. Yeah, anyway. Use the force. Anyway. Anyway, it's such a fun movie. Um uh Venus, where's Venus? In the eighth house, right? And in Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Where's Libra? Third house. So did you ever have a sibling pass away, or an aunt, uncle, or sibling, aunt, uncle, cousin? Did you ever have one of them pass away? Did you ever have one of them pass away? And if you did, I'm sorry. Maybe a boss or a mentor also. You see, when I see the sun in the seventh, like I know you're an Aquarius and I'm Aquarius rising. We tend to be aloof. We tend to be sort of unemotional and all that. But in your case, you might be a bit of a simp, you know? Do you work in systems or electronics or IT? Because you have Mercury in Aquarius. When I see Mercury in Aquarius, I think of people who know how to network. Stillborn brother, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. And I'm not being glib about it. I saw it in your chart, sweetheart. I saw it in your chart. You also have Mars and Saturn in the same house, in your fifth house. So you might be quite sexual, but you may have had a really hard time meeting sexual partners, you know? Or maybe you had a hard time with children. Maybe you can't have children, or you don't want children. Oh, you are studying ITS. Yeah, because with Mercury and Aquarius, I think of people who do networking, people who work with electronics, or one of my good friends, she's Aquarius Venus, Aquarius Mercury. And it can see all the components of a system, right? Whereas Mercury in Virgo sees all the components, but not so much how they fit together, right? Aquarius Mercury has an overarching awareness of systems and systems integration. And what do I mean by that? I mean how systems connect, how they talk to each other, right? How servers perhaps talk to each other, or whatever, you know? I got my CompTIA A+ like years ago, and I briefly worked with IT. I was a systems analyst. But I did more financial stuff, you see. Anyway, that's very typical. Very typical. Yes. Now, the eclipses are oscillating between your ninth and third house. So you're having big beginnings and endings in what you believe. Perhaps in education. Oh, you are studying IT, so education, right? There might be a decided focus on school or university right now, or professional training programs, right? And after October, you could get a certificate of some sort, you know? After October, you could get a certificate of some sort. Associations, relationships, or patterns I study. How people and things are work together. Yeah, see, that totally makes sense. And you would be the kind of person who would, maybe you feel subservient sometimes, or submissive, or like you play second fiddle to someone with the sun in the seventh house. You see? Now, what else? Venus is going through your first house. We already talked about that. It's the sparkle time. It's time to enjoy yourself. And then Saturn's going through your eighth house. Oh, it is the A+. Yeah, I did the A+. I was a Windows power user for a bit. I mean, I couldn't do all that stuff now. Like, I forgot all the command line stuff, of course. I used to use PowerShell a lot. I loved PowerShell. PowerShell. And for the A+, you have to memorize so much shit. Like, you have to remember how many fucking pins are on a SODIMM, you know? Like, how many angels can dance on the head of a SODIMM pin, you know? So, and processor speeds and shit have changed so much. See, I was doing all that stuff in 2019. I was doing all that in 2019. Yeah. First house ruler in the seventh house. Yeah, you see, a little simpy. I can't see. Oh, I see your north node in the eighth house. And Saturn's going through your eighth house right now. I don't know how old you are. Where did everyone go? Everyone left. See, I don't know how old you are. Well, I kind of know how old you are, actually. Where's Pluto? Pluto and Scorpio. So you're a millennial. A late millennial. Saturn went into Capricorn in 2018, 2017 or 2018. So 28 years before that. 28 years. 28 years. Oops. Just want to see. I kind of know how old you are. I kind of know how old you are. I kind of know how old you are. So, yeah, you're just a few years younger than me. Like 5 years younger than me. Now I forget why I was asking about that. Now I forgot why I was wondering how old you were. Jupiter's going through your 11th house, which is great for networking too. And for finding like-minded people and oh, Vesna, you're still here. Yes, sweetheart, you sure are. Please let me know, sound off everyone who's still here so I know who to do next as far as charts. Please sound off on who's still here, please. So I know whose chart I can do next. So I know whose chart I can do next. I see Vesna's here. I see Vesna's here, of course. Oh, Saturn is going through your 8th house, right? Saturn is going through your 8th house. And I know you're approaching the time of your nodal return as well. And your North Node is in the 8th house, you see? Rockabilly, cool. Cassie, Rockabilly, Reagan, and Vesna, cool. I will get to you all. I will get to you all before we finish. So anyway, what was I saying? All this 8th house stuff, you see? It has to do with laws. So this Saturn cycle, and Jezebel's here too. So this Saturn cycle that's happening now until mid next year, you might experience, the worst case scenario is experiencing a death of someone close to you. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be that though, but there is a sense of loss or learning how to let things go, right? Sometimes there's a financial loss, or sometimes we start dealing with debt. Yeah. Sometimes we start dealing with debt. And we also face trauma and fear. It's often about forgiveness. And your life motif as you get older, right? Your nodal return's coming up. And life is about learning to let go, right? It's about learning to let go. Just streamline your life, right? I had a mentor who once said, tread lightly with few responsibilities. Like live as lightly as you can, because you want to focus on the few things that you do well. Anyway, we should move on to the next person. The next person. You may have fights with friends though. You may have fights with friends. Got the job offer. Yay! It was better than you were expecting. Congratulations, Gabrielle. Congratulations. So who do we have here? We got Cassie. We got Vesna. Let's see who's up at the top. We haven't done yet. S. Schultz, Topeka. Jezebel, you were the next one. You ever hear the Sade song? You know Sade? She was big in the 90s. She had a song called Jezebel. Jezebel wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Right? Jezebel. Jezebel. Remember Jezebel asked for the head of John the Baptist? She asked for the head of John the Baptist from, the fuck was his name? King Herod? King Herod. I was raised super Catholic. I don't believe in anything anymore, but I still get a lot from the Gospels. And, you know, let's see. Jezebel Wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth. We already did Nina. We did Xtina. We did James. So I'm doing Jezebel. Sade. If anyone knows Sade, I'll be really surprised. If anyone knows Sade, I'll be surprised. Redwood City. Eileen means referred. Okay. Yes, I gotcha. I gotcha. Redwood City. Where's Redwood City? Is it California? That's California, right? Redwood City? Oh, yes, it is. Okay. California knows how to party. California knows how to party. In the city of LA. In the city of Redwood. Keep me rocking. We'll see if we have time. We'll see if we have time, Esmeralda, but I'm so glad you're here. Esmeralda Villalobos. Anyone see Pulp Fiction? Esmeralda Villalobos. Yeah. Smooth operator. Smooth operator. Right? So Jezebel. We have a Libra rising. We have a new moon baby. New moon baby in Leo. Look at you. It's very similar to my dear friend Amber's chart. Very similar to Amber's chart. You have your South Node in the first house, and you're a Leo new moon, which means your North Node's in the 7th house. So you may have been a bit of a selfish kid, or the focus would have been on you, you see? The focus would have been on you, you see? And as you get older, right, especially you're approaching that time now, bit by bit, when you're having your nodal return, or you're in your nodal return right now. So after this point in your life, relationships, marriages, partnerships, right, partners in general, start to take a bigger role in your life. And you may have had lots of success that came from, your brand. Maybe you're really into your branding, or your appearance, or your presentation somehow, but bit by bit, your partnerships start to become more and more important in your life, you see? So, and that'll be a welcomed thing. It'll be a welcomed thing. And you might be kind of popular. I bet people like you. Oh, you're from Sonora, Esmeralda. You're from Shake, 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 Sonora. It's a stupid song. It's funny. It reminds me of Beetlejuice. But anyway, you're from Mexico. My stepmom is from Mexico. I grew up speaking Spanish. I just suck at it now because I didn't stick with it, But Mexico is relatively friendly to queer people, apparently. So if I have to go somewhere, If I have to go somewhere. But anyway, Jupiter's very happy in Pisces and in your 6th house. And in your 6th house. So freaking small city. Yeah, I bet. Cananea? I bet, yeah, she knew how to cook. That's for damn sure. I haven't talked to her in many years, but yeah, she knew how to cook. She used to eat habanero chiles. She used to pop them in her mouth. Like, oh my God. Jeez Louise. Now, the ruler of your 1st house, if I have all your information correct, is Venus. And Venus is very unhappy in Virgo, and being in the 12th house is tough. So I might have expected you to have neurodivergence, or perhaps mental health issues, or maybe you had to deal with substance abuse somehow. Oftentimes, we're also very solitary people or loners, so we prefer to work in the background and not be in the spotlight. But, working on your confidence might be a thing too, with that unhappy Venus. So on the one hand, you might have an outward appearance of confidence, but deep down you might beat yourself up quite a bit too, You might beat yourself up quite a bit too. You might beat yourself up. Oh, and Jupiter opposite Venus. So you might have issues with self-indulgence, right? Like, oh, I can have another drink. Oh, I can have another cupcake or whatever. You know, so I mean, self-indulgence might be something you have to watch out for. Where's Taurus? Your 8th house. 8th house. Mars. I wonder if you're good at money. Are you good with money at all? Although that might not happen till later in life because Mars is retrograde, ruling your 2nd house. And then, I mean, once again, speech impediments or neurodivergence is often goes with Saturn in the 3rd house. So there's a couple signatures of that, you see. Couple signatures of that, you see. Now Mars is about to go into your 9th house. So you're having a similar thing with beliefs and all that. Jupiter's already there. So you're going to be learning a whole bunch of new stuff over the next year. Spicy Pisces, we did you earlier though, sweetheart. We got your chart earlier, darling. But thank you for sounding off. Thank you for, I did say for everyone to sound off, but I was just wanted to know who was still here for chart readings. Okay. So anyway. And then we've got Saturn going through your 6th house. So this is about taking responsibility for things. This is about, you know, organizing your life, organizing your work, or organizing your job. Because the previous cycle throughout 2022 and 2021, excuse me, felt very unstable probably. Like you were putting out lots of small fires all the time. And now it's time to put one foot in front of the other and get diligent. You see? Now, talked about Jupiter, Mars. Oh, and then Mars going through the 9th house, then you see it's going to cause conflicts in your beliefs. So you might find that your beliefs sort of crash and burn over the next couple of months. But then you start finding new things and learning new things. Or if you're involved in a legal issue, you know, long term the legal issue will work out, but short term it'll feel like, you know, Gabrielle, we got you next. We got you next. But yeah, continue to support and yeah, book a reading when you can, darling. But I'm getting to you. I'm getting to you. And you probably had a bad experience of religion growing up, Jezebel. You probably had a bad experience of religion. Your dad may have been an intellectual or a teacher, yeah? What's funny about Saturn in the 3rd house is oftentimes, my dumbass brother. I'm on a live, little fuck. Anyway. Mercury in the 10th house, ruling the 9th house. I wonder if you have anything to do with... Oh, I think you already said you're a food service worker, but I was about to ask about higher education. So, anyway, lots of interesting stuff. And the eclipses are going between your 1st and 7th house. So you're having a bit of an existential crisis. You may have had a big breakup or met a new partner, you know, between April and October happening. Oh, you're Catholic? Yeah, I was too. So you may have met a new partner, had a breakup or something like that. But after October, it's going to be more of an existential crisis where you're trying to figure out, you know, your confidence or your identity. Oftentimes when we change relationships, it changes the way we relate. It changes the way we relate to ourselves, you see? He's engineering and I was stricted. And was stricted. I don't know what that means. But anyway. Venus is going through your 11th house, which is very good for networking around this time. And it's good for social media and a good reputation or being well-liked, being popular, being social. So now's the time to get out and enjoy yourself. You see? Anyway, let's move on. Yes, me. Well, yes, we were on and off. Okay. Okay. God, my stupid watering eyes. It's just so dry and my eyes water here so easy. So Gabrielle. Gabrielle's next. Gabrielle. Gabrielle. For 31 p.m. Iowa. Okay. 214. So we have another Leo rising. Another Leo rising. Opposite me. Look at that. All that stuff in the 7th house in Aquarius. It's so interesting because on the one hand, we think of Aquarius, especially the moon and the sun, as a bit... You've loved my page for a couple of years? Wonderful. Thank you so much for your support. So anyway, the stuff in the 7th house, it's interesting because Aquarius, I'm Aquarius rising, and we can be a bit aloof, you know? We can be a bit distant, right? We don't like to be vulnerable with people, especially Aquarius moon. We intellectualize our emotions quite a bit, you know? But when you have all this stuff in the 7th house, it makes us quite simpy, you know? Makes us quite simpy. 3rd Leo rising since I got on. Yeah, and I've dated like 4 Leo risings and 4 Leo suns. I think a couple of them overlap. But yeah, I've dated a lot of people. I'm not saying I'm a slut, but I go through the zodiac more than Venus, you know? Anyway, I think I've been with every sign. Have I? Have I? Yeah, I think I've been with every sign like multiple times. Oh my goodness. Yeah, definitely a simpy partner. Well, you have to watch out it doesn't get into codependency because, you know, like I said earlier, when you see these placements, there's a tendency to be too scared to be alone or too scared to leave someone, you know, and you have to stick up for yourself. Your North Node's in the 1st house, right? Which means this life, bit by bit, is about learning how to be independent and confident. You know, and you don't get that from relationships. You know, you might look for external validation, but you need to get it within, and it all comes from accomplishment, you see? It comes from accomplishment. But the kinds of partners you would need would need to be deep people, like philosophical people or spiritual people, people you can share the deep questions with and philosophize with. Having those wild conversations about existence, you know? Very interesting stuff. And you're going to be having your Saturn return starting next year when Saturn goes into Aries, you see. That's all quite interesting too. You have Jupiter and Saturn in the 9th house. So you may have been religious or spiritual as a kid, but then at some point, you lost your spirituality or lost your sense of meaning and have had to rediscover it bit by bit. Saturn in the 9th house can make us terrible skeptics. I have Saturn in the 9th house, you see. And I'm always at war with God. And I'm an empiricist. You know, I don't necessarily believe in things, especially things I can't experience for myself. You know, well, I mean, I can read facts and logic and stuff and accept that and accept science. But anyway, you would have this dual sort of nature where on the one hand, it's like, oh, I want to know, you know, prove it to me. You know, I just want to know the truth. And then you might have this other side of yourself that's very sort of pious and dedicated to a spiritual path, you know? So I've been growing in confidence my own. Recovery with PTSD and neurodivergence. Yeah, I mean, I have both too. PTSD and neurodivergence. See, with the neurodivergence and stuff, you have a very unhappy Mercury in Pisces. Like, you may be able to see in your head exactly what you want to say or communicate. And you might think in images, right? You may have a very pictorial mind or visualize things very well, right? But it would also be difficult to express those things. Like we see people who are very intelligent, yet just have a very difficult time expressing that, right? Difficult time speaking or expressing. But Mercury rules your 10th house too, so I imagine you've had a difficult time with career or life direction. I wonder if you have anything to do with finance, payroll, right? Or maybe working with people's pain or trauma, something. Anyway. I hope you're not doing anything illegal. I'm simpy too, gots the BPD, and a strong chance of autism. Yeah, I haven't been formally diagnosed, but I date a lot of autistic people and I feel more comfortable around them. And most of my ex-partners and current partner have told me that I'm autistic, you know. So, and it's pretty obvious. And I'm bipolar, but I have BPD features, you know, so I feel you there. I feel you there. We have abandonment issues, don't we? Terrible abandonment issues. And look at you, Gabrielle. You have Mars square the moon. So you may have a big temper on you, too. And Dad may have had a temper. Dad may have had a temper. You work with elderly people. Oh, well, there you go. I mean, if you ever have to work with death, yes. And you are autistic too. Or your dad and brother too. Yeah, my dad and brother are too. So, although my dad's dead, but yeah, neurodivergence, you see. James Logan says also bipolar. Yeah, see, I mean I take medication for bipolar disorder, but then for like you know, the BPD features, I have therapy. And I have a really good therapist, you know. I have a really great therapist. Anyway. In terms of timing, Saturn's also going through your 8th house. So you probably heard what I said to other people. It's about learning about loss. You know, you may have a death of someone close to you, or you may get an inheritance. You may have to deal with debt. You may have to face trauma or fear. Oftentimes we have to forgive, right? We face someone who really hurt us, you know, when we were younger, and we have to let it go. This whole transit is about letting go. Now, when you have your Saturn return, that could be about going back to school, college. You know, it could be about having your beliefs like dismantled and deconstructed and having to find a whole new path. Right? Those are things that happen too. Now, you also have Venus going through your 1st house. We talked about that. This is time to have fun and meet new partners, perhaps. And you might feel sexy and confident, you see. We already talked about Mars going through your 11th house, which is fights with friends and cutting people off. But then Jupiter's going through here for the next year, a little less than a year, right? And that's all about getting new support. Yes. Being popular. Anyway, facing biological mom, going to ACA, healing a lot. Yeah, good. Yeah, well, this is all about healing, really. But it's about facing pain and trauma, too, which is how we heal. You know, we have to process things by allowing ourselves to feel them again, as painful as that is, and how much we don't like it, right? We don't like it. So... Nightfall waves. Hello, sweetheart. How are you? And you're part of fortunes in the 12th house. So you get success from dealing with your mental health. You know? So anyway. We got to move on to the next person. After Gabrielle. Excuse me. Rockabilly. Rockabilly. You still here, Rockabilly? Gonna rock, rockabilly. Oh, Rockalily, sorry. Rockalily. Rockefeller Records. I shouldn't talk about that. 6/16/88. Thank you for doing Date Time City. 4:10 a.m. San Nicholas. San Nicolas came up. Or maybe I should put De los Garza in there. De los. LMN. Oh, here we go. San Nicolas de los Garzas. Yay! I found it. Okay. Rockalily. Rockalily. Cool, sweetheart. You're welcome, Gabriella. Gabrielle. So, look, you got Jupiter in the first house, too. I mean, sometimes that can make us a little overweight, or it can also give us added confidence, you know, make us very inclusive. People would like us, you know. Can make us a little pompous, too, sometimes, you know. Make us feel very important. Oh, are you a singer? Do you like to sing? With Venus conjunct Mercury? They're retrograde, but that's quite interesting. You see, it's a very happy Mercury in Gemini. But when Mercury's retrograde, it can either bring on neurodivergence again. I have it, and I'm neurodivergent. I also have dyslexia. You see that oftentimes. Also, luck with money would happen as you got older, right? Approaching your late 30s and early 40s, then money would get better for you. Money would get better. And you might have a small business. Like building up your business or your brand would be a big deal for you. You know? Yes, I'm neurodivergent. Yeah, you see? Very typical. Very typical. God, my eyes. Oh, excuse me. Oh, you got Pluto opposite your ascendant. You know, you've had probably a bit of a painful life. And then Saturn's in the 8th house. So you learn, again, you learn through letting go. You've had to deal with loss and probably a significant death while you were still young, you know? Yes, need to get to work on that small business. Yeah, and again, it's that stuff that happens later in life. So, yeah, this is the time when you need to start working on it bit by bit. And by later in life, I mean the late 30s, early 40s. You might see yourself get more popular, too, you know, as you get older. When you have your nodal return next year. When you have your nodal return next year. Excuse me. Now, you may also have fights with friends. You may have cut people off or have a tendency to cut people off with Mars in the 11th house. And you also may be fiercely protective of your friends as well. So, but making relationships, and I don't mean romantic, I mean with people who think like you do, or who are interested in the same stuff, or who support your work or your small business will be quite important. And maintaining a bit of good publicity will be important, because you might get antagonistic with your customers or your friends or people who support you, right? When people make suggestions, you might be like, fuck you, you know? And you have Mars square Venus and Mars square Mercury, right? You may be a bit of an arguer. And you may be a bit sexual, which ain't a bad thing. That ain't a bad thing. My therapist said, I told my therapist, I said, I'm addicted to orgasms. And my therapist said, you know, there's worse stuff you could be addicted to. And that's actually good for your health. You know, lots of orgasms is good for your health. Anyway. Mars square Venus, too, can maybe make you a bit more assertive and maybe a bit more masculine, right? Sometimes you'll see that kind of thing with people who are bisexual or, you know, bisexual or, you know, have gender dysphoria sometimes, or what else? You know, into alternative relationship styles, perhaps. Might be into polyamory, or I don't know. Might be into kink. kinky stuff. Kinky stuff. And Pluto trine Mars too. I mean, you have a healthy sense of desire, you know. You probably know how to go after what you want. You may be almost a little predatory in a way. I mean, I don't mean like bad predatory. I mean, you know, you look at people and be like, oh yeah, I can get them. I'm gonna get them. And see, you'd probably meet your partners through friends, or they would be friends with you first, right? Your first house ruler is Venus in the second house. So you see material stability. Material stability will be very important. Like you get very uncomfortable, right? With unstable finances or feeling like you're lacking material support. Probably makes you quite uncomfortable. Right? And Saturn's in the 8th house, which I said indicates facing death when we're younger, but it also indicates having to learn how to let go. Sometimes it indicates death, but it's teaching us how to deal with loss and how to let things go that don't serve us anymore. You know, things become extra, especially when we no longer identify with them. And the part of fortune in the 12th house indicates that you're going to be addressing your mental health, and you find success in life by, you know, dealing with your mental health situation. So, and you're very sensitive with that moon in Cancer, right? Now, what's important to note is that Jupiter's going through your second house right now too. Jupiter's going through your second house, which is good for money and finances over the next year. But while Mars is here for the next couple months, you got to watch spending money. You know, there's a tendency to either blow some cash when you should be saving. Like you really need to save for a rainy day. Or Mars indicates that rainy day happens, you know. Well, being sensitive isn't bad. Yeah. Although you're quite passionate too, with Mars trine the moon. You know, quite passionate. You know, it makes us get worked up over things that we believe in. Anyway, so Saturn's now going through the 11th house, which alienates us quite a bit. We talked about that earlier. Jupiter going through the second house is quite lovely because it helps your income, but we talked about Mars also encouraging us to spend. Venus is going through your 4th house, so there may be some luck with, you know, finding a place, generational wealth. Your father could be getting good luck. Your stepmom, your father's wife, something like that. Venus is also sisters. You know, a sister could move in with you for a little bit or stay with you. I don't know. Or you might just get really interested in genealogy or family history, you know. We also decorate our house around this time. You know, we learn to enjoy our own company. We want to make our home space feel like an extension of us and how we feel on the inside, right? So anyway, let's move on to someone else. After Rockalily. 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 JMGMT, are you still here? Jay, are you still here? Jay. Is that December 14th? December 14th, 96. 1422. December 14th, 96, is that correct? Kurungela. Where's Kurungela? Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, formerly known as Ceylon. My dad went to Sri Lanka. Karunagala. 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 Okay, I found Karunagala. Is that right, Sri Lanka? Is that right? Are you Sri Lanka? Reagan, when you could do mine, my deets are. Were you Sri Lanka? I have December the 14th, 1996, 2:22 p.m., Karunagala, Sri Lanka. I'll assume that's correct, and I'll just start. And you can let me know whenever if anything's wrong. If anything's wrong. So Saturn in the first house, and not very happy. You're about to have your Saturn return midway through next year, right? And Saturn in the first house, as I said, that tends to make us sort of more codependent and a bit more simpy. You see? There's a difficult, we're constantly looking for external validation. We want other people to tell us we're doing a good job, And it's interesting how much to read yours. Well, I'm about to get off in just a little bit, sweetheart. And then I go live. I try to go live 3 times a week. But you can also, I do hour-long readings for $110 USD over Zoom. Or I do an hour and a half, 90-minute long readings for $155 USD, all over Zoom, and I record the readings and send you the video. So anyway, it's tough having Saturn in the first house, because we look for external validation, but your North Node's in the 7th house, indicating that, you learn how to build confidence in order to have real meaningful relationships. And as I said earlier, we can't just approach relationships when we're, feeling sorry for ourselves, because then we get into these codependent spirals where we let people take advantage of us because we're too scared to get out of the thing, you see? You see? And you got a bunch of stuff in your 10th house. Your 10th house ruler's in the 4th house, but Saturn doesn't like being. He's in fall, or she's in fall in Aries, because she's exalted in Libra. You see? So you may have had difficult career issues. Although I'd expect you to be very intelligent, and your intelligence factors in highly to whatever your work is. And you may have a good reputation. Well, actually, that's iffy. Jupiter rules your 9th house and your 12th house. So you might work behind the scenes, or you might work in therapy or social work or something like that. 12th house stuff. Saturn girl, can you give me 2 minutes at last? I already did yours, Topeka. I already did yours, sweetheart. Were you not listening or watching? I already did your chart, darling. What does chronic and Aries? You mean Chiron? It's more important what house it's in. This sign isn't that important because Chiron moves really slow. Chiron has a cycle of 54 years, right? Which is like twice that of Saturn. So I'm not so much concerned with, and Chiron doesn't rule anything, so I'm not really concerned with the sign Chiron is in. I'm concerned with the house. I'm working as a SE. I don't know what that is. Working as an SE. Oh, social something. Yeah, I mean, we oftentimes see that sort of stuff. Having to work with people's pain. And with Aquarius moon, you probably have difficulty being, you want to talk to me actually? Well, remember, Deepika, you were going to arrange an appointment with me so we can always chat then. After this, I have to work. I have to work more. And I would love to go roller skating. I don't know if it's in the cards. I was supposed to have a date, Software engineer. Oh, software engineer. Yeah, I mean, that's in a very Aquarian and Capricornian sort of thing. It's a very Aquarian and Capricornian sort of thing. My Bible is planets in Transits by Robert Hand. Yeah, that's very good. And yeah, I was supposed to have a date. I think we're actually moving it to tomorrow, though. So, um, I have a wonderful partner, though, already. It's just that I'm poly, you know, and I like having two partners. So, actually, I like having three, but so we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes. I mean, I'm fine with just two partners. Saturn girl, I've been doing this for like Saturn girl been doing this for 2 hours. I've been doing this for almost 3 hours, sweetheart. Well, 2.5. Sorry, 2.5. 2.5 hours. So Moon in the 11th house is often quite popular. You see? Often quite popular, but then there's a part of you that's distant from other people too. You know? Unicorn life. I mean, I see a couple occasionally too, a married couple, and that's kind of fun. But I like having two like dedicated long-term partners, you know, two dedicated long-term partners who I can love and trust, you know. I'm a very loving Cancer Venus, but I have a 5th house Sun and Mars. So even though I get emotionally attached, I need like lots of sex. Like I need at least 5 orgasms every day. So that's why I need multiple partners. Because I need 5 orgasms every day. And not a lot of people can accommodate me with that. I have to accommodate myself a lot of times, as I'm sure you can imagine. Anyway, my therapist said it was okay to be addicted to orgasms. My therapist said it was okay. Mercury conjunct the midheaven, though, so it makes sense that technology factors in, heavily to your life. But Sun in the 9th house often indicates that you were interested in spirituality and all this stuff, from a young age. Or you may have been interested in foreign cultures or learned a foreign language or something like that. Now, your 9th house ruler is Jupiter in the 10th house. So you may have also had an unpleasant experience of religion growing up. And then Jupiter, the ruler of all that, may indicate working in higher education. So I don't know if that was ever a thing. You said you're a software engineer, but I don't know what sort of company you work for. You see? So, software engineer. Software engineer. See, Mars rules your 1st house and is in the 6th house. And that can be difficult because it feels like we're always, fighting an uphill battle. You see? Fighting an uphill battle. Oftentimes we have to face incredible odds. It's fighting the good fight when we know we're going to lose, but it's the right thing to do. And you might have a really good work ethic too. You might be a hard worker, or sometimes the bad side of this is people just don't like us. We're seen as an enemy or a villain. But not always that. Could also be people who are very diligent and people who face difficult circumstances, not because they know they're going to win, but because they know it's the right thing to do. You see? I have a therapist when I was a teen say it was okay to be a sex addict. And then she was too. I mean, I don't think I'm a sex addict. I guess I am. It doesn't cause any problems in my life, except it does decrease my productivity, because there's a lot of work that goes into dating, and I really do hate dating. I like just having the partner, and getting past the dating part. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy having new play partners because I'm really into kink, but I like having loving partnerships too, where we have emotional intimacy and we can sort of rely on each other. But anyway, Venus rules your 2nd house. So money may be an issue. Money may be tight. Career. I mean, maybe you had a difficult time finding your life direction or career. But I'm looking... change my MP. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. Looking, change my, I don't know what that means. Employment? Looking to change your employment? I mean, I bet you are dissatisfied with what you do. Saturn's going through your 12th house right now, which is a tough transit, you see, because we often feel isolated and exiled. You might not leave the house too much. You might not be very social right now. Although with an 11th house moon, you have a good social nature. But at this time, until next year, you probably haven't been too interested in social things. Now look at what else is happening. Jupiter is going through your 3rd house, and that's where your part of fortune is. So your ability to communicate with other people and to make connections, excuse me, is a big part of what brings you success. Now you could also get success through siblings. I don't know if a sibling introduced you to your job or whatever, but yeah. See, nothing's going through Capricorn right now, so I'm not, so there's no overt things about your career. We could always look at other timing techniques if you were to get a full reading. But then Jupiter rules your 10th house and is in the 3rd, you know, which could be good for a career, you see? But typically having to do with 3rd house type things like writing, speaking, or teaching, or being involved in your immediate community, or getting an opportunity through a sibling, you see? Now Venus is going through your 5th house, so this is a time to enjoy yourself and have fun, you know? If you can, go out and date, you know? Go out and date. Meet some new partners or something. You see? But Mars is about to go through your 3rd house too. So that's road rage, you know, or getting in fights with siblings. So you want to slow down, you know, don't drive too fast. Watch out for all that. We talked about Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. So anyway, now the eclipses are going back between your 1st and 7th house. So this is a big time for you. You know, the way you relate to yourself is changing and your sense of identity is changing. You may have to face health issues. And you may have had to face big breakups. Or, you know, it could be new partners or breaking up with old partners. And that oftentimes changes the way we relate to ourselves too, you see. But anyway, I've gone over quite a bit. And so I have to leave. But I'm going to go live again. Probably Sunday morning. We'll see. I'm supposed to see that couple on Sunday. That's always fun. Being a unicorn is fun. But I'd rather have, you know, I prefer having romantic, intimate relationships. I prefer having someone I can have emotional intimacy with, you know, along with all the filthy stuff. And believe me, I'm pretty filthy. Even when I'm clean, I'm very filthy. Very filthy. But it's fun filth. It's in a very fun way. Bexy will tell you. Right, Bexy? It's very fun filth, you know? You're welcome, Jay. And I try to go live at least 2 to 3 times a week. So please, 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 and like this stream and subscribe to my channel. Share all this shit with your friends. Like, bring me new subscribers. I'm trying to get to 3,000 next. I'm trying to get to 3,000 subscribers next. What am I at now? I'm at 2,462. So I need another 500. I need another 500. Yeah. Oh, Cassie, I'm sorry. I was supposed to get to you too, my darling. I'm sorry. I have to go. I need to eat. I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry. Bexy, you stuck around. You're so sweet. You stuck around. You're so sweet. Bexy is so wonderful to me. She treats me like a queen. She's so wonderful for me. Regan says it was so fun to watch. Please keep coming and eventually I'll get to your chart. Remember, I do prioritize members, donations, and then I go to everyone else in sequential order. Okay, so please, please, please keep coming because I will get to you eventually. Okay? I love you all and thank you for coming. Please share this on Facebook. Yes, please. Share this with your friends. And this is a consistent thing I'm going to keep doing. And I'll try to give at least a day's notice before I go live. Okay?